Hey guys, welcome back to Get Smart with Rory. Once again, bringing you Last Week in Science. Another huge week to go over, but there's no way I couldn't talk about new leaps in quantum computing, or what's happening with the nuclear wastewater from Fukushima, or updates on the latest NASA mission to Mars, to just name a few. Timestamps in the description if you want to jump around. But I think what we need to talk about first, as I said, we have some new leaps in quantum computing. Two, as a matter of fact, which may not seem like much, but I feel like progress in quantum computing has become almost a weekly segment, which is very exciting to me. First, we have Pablo Bonilla-Antides, whose name I'm sure I just terribly butchered. I'm so sorry, Pablo. But anyway, he was in his second year science class given a project to look at some commonly used error correcting code to see if he could improve it. Turns out the answer is yes. Very yes. Just by flipping half of the qubits in their design, it was found they could double the ability to suppress errors in the quantum computing. This second-year physics project is making its way into Amazon Web Services' quantum computing department, as well as being featured in Nature magazine. Not bad for undergraduate studies. Also in quantum news, we have the first 3-node quantum network, a feat which seems trivial for people used to complex classical computing networks, which are, massive, not to even discuss neural networks. But for quantum computing, this is a huge leap. Up until now, we've made quantum computers which are able to do some calculations, which may or may not be able to be done by a regular computer. And we can use quantum entanglement to link two quantum computers together to share information. But for quantum computing to ever really become mainstream, computers are going to need to be able to pass signals back and forth along a network, passing through various hubs and routers along the way. In their system, by implementing an extra quantum bit used to store a link with the first computer, the middle node can then establish a link with the second, allowing a quantum link between A and C, or, using different parameters, may establish quantum entanglement between all three. And now, some weird science. I don't want to spend too much time on it because mostly it's just strange, but I find it interesting, and if I do, I'm sure someone else does too. MIT scientists use spider webs to make music. Well, music. Spiders have terrible eyesight, but an excellent sense of vibrations. It's basically how they navigate much of the world. So, using artificial intelligence algorithms, researchers took spider webs and converted the strands of web into a sort of music, entering the world of spider vibration. And they hope that in doing, we can find structural patterns which normally we wouldn't be able to detect just looking at them in our mostly visual world. And it could have applications in 3D printing, and the researchers even expressed some interest in talking in the language of spiders with spiders. I don't know. As I said, it's weird science. I'm going to play a little clip from the results. It's haunting, but, at least in my opinion, not altogether pleasant to listen to. Okay. In other weird news, researchers from Tübingen and Utrecht University have created light waves which can pass through otherwise opaque materials. So, okay, when I first saw this, not gonna lie, I thought, well, yeah, it's called X-rays, or gamma rays for thicker materials, whatever. But this is actually quite a bit cooler than that. Using carefully constructed but otherwise regular visual light, they were able to project patterns through a layer of what should be totally opaque zinc oxide. The trick is, when light strikes an object, collisions with the particles cause the light to be reflected or scatter, so that even if, for a thin membrane, you can detect that light is shining towards you, any pattern in that light is lost. By measuring how the light is scattered, scientists could then create a so-called scattering invariant wave, a beam of light which, after all the scattering is said and done, continues exactly as though the scattering hadn't been done at all. This could have applications, just as an example, in a non-destructive look into living cells. But that's not even the end of weird science this week. Researchers from the United States and China have worked together to create human monkey chimera embryos which survived far longer than expected. That is, up to 19 days. To be clear, no human embryos were used in the experiments. Human stem cells were added to 6-day-old monkey embryos ex vivo, that is, in a petri dish, and grew as part of the host. The limit for healthy monkey embryos ex vivo is only around 20 days, while senior author Professor Beaumont notes that with the added complexity, it's difficult to keep a chimera embryo alive for even just a few days. Obviously, even without using human embryos, this research is rather controversial, but proponents argue it may have applications ranging from drug testing to organ transplants. In environmental news, Japan has confirmed it will start dumping contaminated water from Fukishima reactors into the ocean. Back in 2011, people may remember that the nuclear power plant in Fukushima went into meltdown following a severe earthquake and tsunami that the plant was not prepared for. The managers of the Daiichi power plants built more than 1,000 tanks to contain water that had leaked into the reactor or was used to cool the fuel. But with more than 150 tons of water being added every day, already in excess of 1 million tons of contaminated water, it couldn't go on forever. So possible options become evaporating the water, creating a more concentrated remaining sludge, injecting it deep underground, or releasing contaminated water into the Pacific. The thing is, scary as it seems, scientists worldwide agree that releasing it into the Pacific is actually the right call. If dumped over the course of a year, the increase in radiation to local residents would be less than that of eating an extra banana once per week. That's right, potassium-rich foods are radioactive. It's not a big deal. The overall Pacific Ocean wouldn't even see a detectable change. It's a big body of water. And this isn't a rash decision either. With containment ponds filling up, the idea was raised last October, giving time for more alternative options to be considered. A nuclear meltdown is a scary event, but this was and is being handled as responsibly as possible. Also in environmental news, researchers from Purdue University have created a new ultra-white paint, a white which reflects over 98% of sunlight which hits it. This opens a surprisingly effective tool against global warming. Researchers estimate that if just 0.5 to 1% of the Earth's surface was covered in this paint, it would halt the warming trend. That's still not terribly realistic when you realize how much surface area that is, but more viably, the paint is an excellent option to keep homes and businesses cool in the summer. It's roughly as durable as regular commercial paint, and studies have shown that surfaces painted with it would be about 8 degrees cooler than the ambient temperature during the day and 19 degrees cooler at night. That's all Fahrenheit, of course. Cooler than ambient temperature, mind. And anyone who's walked across asphalt barefoot knows that surface temperatures can get quite a bit warmer than that. Air conditioning keeps your house cool, but it takes energy to do so. energy which creates heat of its own, not to mention having a carbon footprint, all of which adds to the overall problem. And even then, it's not like the heat from your home is being destroyed, it's just being transported outside of the house. Meanwhile, a house painted with ultra-white is passively cooled and actually decreases the overall temperature of the environment by reflecting heat, still in the form of visible light, back out into space. And finally, on the subject of space, I couldn't not talk about the Ingenuity helicopter's maiden flight on the Martian surface. As far as helicopter flight goes, it wasn't much. After the Perseverance rover found a nice, flat area for takeoff and gently lowered the helicopter to the ground, Ingenuity flew about 3 meters, that's 10 feet, off of the ground, turned towards Perseverance, took a picture, and landed. A total flight which took less than 2 minutes. You can be absolutely sure that it took less than 2 minutes because Ingenuity only has a maximum flight range of 90 seconds at a time. And you know what? NASA control went wild. See, Mars might only have 1/3 of Earth's gravity, but it has only 1/100th the air pressure, making any flight without rockets very difficult. Ingenuity can't rely on heavy liquid fuels for power. It needs to charge itself using solar panels. And did I mention it had to make this flight all on its own? It takes 15 minutes for a signal to reach Earth from Mars, then another 15 to send something back. For a flight that's 90 seconds long, there's just no way humans could pilot the drone. Not only that, but with that low air pressure, it's doubtful humans could even react in time if something went wrong, even without the delay. Overall, a remarkable milestone, just proving that Martian aviation is possible, and I look forward to more news surrounding Perseverance and Ingenuity in coming days. There is one more big piece of science news from the last couple of weeks, which I haven't covered. Actually, possibly the biggest physics discovery of the last 10 years. Something, an unknown force breaking the standard model of particle physics? But it's going to have to wait. This video's already dragging on a bit, and that piece is going to take some time to cover just on its own. Keep your eyes out, video should be up in the next couple of days, so subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can see right away when it airs. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, and if anything from this video caught your interest, links for everything down in the description below. And until next time, see ya.